Hello YouTube! Today in the Naughty Librarian, I am going over some of my favorite New Orleans themed books. I have like an undying love of New Orleans. It's like my favorite place. Also, I have my Mardi Gras beads because I went to New Orleans like right after Mardi Gras, and like if you go after Mardi Gras, literally everything is covered in beads. Like it's like it rained beads and no one cleaned it up. I wanted to do a little video in honor of Mardi Gras, talking about some of my favorite books that also take place in New Orleans. First recommendation is Moonlight Sins by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is a kind of romance. It's set like in a bayou mansion, and it's New Orleans-y. I believe they do go on a date in the French Quarter, and yeah, it's kind of, it's a little smutty, it's a little, like, dark family secrets. It's very, like, dramatic and juicy. Like, if you want juicy secrets, like, this is the book. Also, topless guy in the cover, you know they're gonna bang. So, yes, there is some smut in it. It's a cool romance. It's, like, good if you want, like, a juicy romance. Like, oh, I love it. Another recommendation is the Dark Hunter series by Sherrilyn Kenyon. In particular, I grabbed Night Embrace because it is iconically New Orleans-y. I mean, the main character Talon, in the beginning of the book, he's sitting at Café du Monde, and then when he leaves Café du Monde, he gets hit by a runaway Mardi Gras float. Like, it couldn't be more New Orleans if it tried. And then his love interest, her name is Sunshine, which is a stupid name, but that's neither here nor there. She is an artist, and she works in Jackson Square selling like pottery and stuff. So like all of the locations in this book are like New Orleans AF. And even on the cover here, it's really small, but that's Lafayette Cemetery. So like it's so New Orleans-y, and the whole series is really good. It's kind of vampires in a way that's not kind of actually vampires. Like, it's hard to explain. It also involves Greek gods and like all kinds of other stuff. And it's just a good series. They're funny, they're smutty, like they are smutty. Oh my, like these are paranormal romances, and like they're very steamy. So if you're going in thinking like, oh, there'll be like a few smutty scenes, you'll be wrong, because there's a lot of smutty scenes and a lot of like cool action scenes. They're fun, they're pulpy, they're great to read. I also recommend the Immortals After Dark series by Kresley. A lot of the books do take place in New Orleans because there are several like groups of characters that have built their homes there. And this one in particular I feel is the most iconically New Orleans-esque. Dark Needs and Night's Edge. It follows Noemi Laress, and she was a prima ballerina who was murdered by her fiance, and now she's a ghost. And like she died in like her, you know, gothic mansion in New Orleans. So like picture like the Coven house from American Horror Story Coven, like that. And then there's a ghost ballerina who every year on the anniversary of her death, she has to do like the full ballet she danced on the night that she died, and then gets murdered every time. So it's like, it's so gothic and like New Orleans and paranormal and cool that it's worth it. There's also a vampire in it, so it's a ghost and a vampire. How are these crazy kids gonna make it work? You guess you have to read it. But yes, lots of the like stories do take place around New Orleans because a lot of the characters live there. But this one I felt like is very New Orleans. I also recommend the Frankenstein series by Dean Koontz. Like, Dean Koontz is an author I don't really read all that much, but like I randomly picked up Frankenstein at like at the library for, I don't know, I just went in and was like, all right, I'm reading this. It was just one of those random things. I need to read something, I picked it. Surprisingly, very good. Like, it's so out of my wheelhouse of like things I read that like it's crazy. Like, I took a chance and it panned out. It's actually really cool, interesting, modern take on Frankenstein. Like I said, it takes place in New Orleans. It's, I don't say it's really tied necessarily to New Orleans, but like New Orleans adds like that extra kind of noir vibe to it. So it does feel like an appropriate setting for the story. You probably could have said it somewhere else and it would have been good as well. But like, you know what? I don't always read Dean Koontz, and I picked this up randomly, and the fact that it took place in New Orleans made me like it slightly more just going off the beginning. And then like I actually ended up really liking this series and I read the whole thing, so Yes, New Orleans saves books for me. I also recommend the Wicked Trilogy by Jennifer Armentrout. This is kind of about this order of people who basically keep the Fae from destroying the world. And they're based in New Orleans. And the Fae are bad guys in this. They eat people. They're not cool. And it's about Evie and Ren. It's kind of new adult in a way because, I mean, there's a fair amount of smut, but, like, it's not overly smutty. I feel like it's definitely, like, a new adult book, but, like, it's good for, like, if you want a smutty romance, there's sufficient smut for it to be a smutty romance. Evie is kind of kind-hearted, and she does take under her wing, like, this little pixie, and she names him Tink, and he wears Barbie pants, and he's just, like, a crazy thing, and he humps troll dolls, and, like, I just love him. So, it's got, like, a lot of weird stuff going on, but, like, I feel like New Orleans does add, like, an extra vibe to it. It's iconically New Orleans. Evie lives in the Garden District. She is talking about running down Delphine in the French Quarter to get to the Order headquarters, so, like, it's all real places in New Orleans are in this book, and it's really cool. I also recommend the Arcana Chronicles by Kresley Cole. In particular, I think the first book is the only one that really takes place in New Orleans. After that, they are traveling quite a bit, so it does leave New Orleans, but, like, New Orleans is very rooted in the characters because one of the main characters, Jack, is actually Cajun, so, like, he speaks with a Cajun accent, so it's written that way. And he speaks French sometimes, so, I mean, there's a Cajun character in it. It's very New Orleans. The titular Poison Princess is a girl named Evie. She grows up on this big, you know, kind of gothic plantation house, and the land is very important because she grows sugarcane, and she is... Okay, sorry, let's just explain this series. Basically, every few hundred years the world ends, and it's like a game the gods play where these people are imbued with the major arcana. So basically the cast of characters are all based on tarot card arcanas, and they all fight to the death, and whoever is the last one standing gets immortality until the next battle, next apocalypse. This apocalypse was very bad in particular, and Evie is the Empress, and the Empress is always, like, pictured with plants and everything, so she has this whole gothic plantation full of sugarcane, and she can control them. Like, it makes sense that it's in New Orleans, on that house in New Orleans. Like, it all makes sense for the story. Also, Cajun character. It's actually a really cool series, and I wish more people read it. Another graphic novel series that I was so into, like, a while ago is 100 Bullets. This is by Brian Azzarello and Eduardo Risso, and it's a really cool concept. It's kind of like film noir, and the whole series doesn't take place in New Orleans, but this one in particular does take place in New Orleans. And a lot of the art is, like, iconically that, like, grit that New Orleans has, and it also has all those wrought iron, like, beautiful balconies and everything. So, like, a lot of the art is really cool. The basic concept of the whole series is there's this guy named Graves, and he shows up with a briefcase, and in this briefcase is a gun and 100 rounds of ammunition, 100 bullets, and also a dossier that is all of the evidence you could ever need to prove this is the person that ruined your life. He goes, finds these broken people and hands them this briefcase and says, here is all the information you need. This is the exact person and this is what they did that ruined your life. Here's 100 rounds of ammunition. Also, if you could literally go in front of the police station and shoot this guy and you'd get off scot-free. Like, that's, like, this organization does this. Well, I'll get into that later. There's a whole other arcing storyline here. But, it's a really interesting concept. Like, what do you do? Like, you have all of this information. It's proven. This is the person that ruined your life. You can literally murder them scot-free. You will not see a minute of jail time. It's like a really cool film noir-y, like, crime story. It's really interesting. So I do recommend picking it up if that's, like, your jam. And particularly this one, I think this is book 8. So it's, like, further along in the series, but it does take place primarily in New Orleans. Okay, so those are all books I definitely recommend, and I want to throw in 2 books that are anticipated reads for me that take place in New Orleans. First off, I have Hired by Zoey Castile. This is a sequel to Stripped, which is basically kind of Magic Mike. So this is Magic Mike in New Orleans, and I'm into it so much. Like, he's a male stripper escort, and then I believe she's like a politician's daughter, so like, you know, odd couple, but takes place in New Orleans. I really enjoyed Stripped. Took me a while to get into, but then like I got really into it. It's fun and juicy. Like, it's a juicy romance. Like, I love it. So I definitely want to read Hired because it takes place in New Orleans. I also really, really want to read The Veil by Chloe Neill. It is urban fantasy. It is after like a magical apocalypse. There is this area in New Orleans where all of the magically endowed people are forced to live. They call it Devil's Isle. And then there's this girl, and I guess she has magic, and then she gets caught and she has to go to Devil's Isle. And then like save the world from magic apocalypse. You know, urban fantasy, paranormal romance stuff. It's good. And like all of that sounds like totally my jam. Like, if you had to pick a book that you're like, oh man, I would like this, like, that's it. That's the book. Okay, so those are all books that I liked that definitely takes place in New Orleans, or at least New Orleans plays a significant part in the story. So let me know in the comments down below. Did I miss your favorite New Orleans book? What was it? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, have you read any of these books? Do you love New Orleans like I do? Because I feel like I never shut up about it because I love it so much. So yeah, let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like, and if you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. And I'll see you guys soon. Bye!